Reality isn't just some random chaos. It's a reflection of what's happening inside you. And that's the truth behind why your life looks like the way that it does. And it all starts with your internal operating system. Your internal operating system is what really has your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is what essentially is the main component and the most important component of it all. This is where it all starts. This is where your internal operating system is running programs that have been accepted without any question. And then your base internal operating system here, this essentially goes into your external, right? Whatever your internal system is running, that is all reflected out into the actual external world with external people, situations, opportunities. And then you get feedback from all of that, right? Your internal operating system is what's creating your reality through your thoughts, through your beliefs, through your feelings, which then gets expressed out into the external world. Then you get the feedback. Then you get the actual outcomes, the signals, the data, the results that tell you whether you're on the right path or not, or whether the life that you are living is conducive of what you actually have decided, right? Because more often than not, this is running unconsciously and you keep getting the same results and you're wondering why, right? So this whole entire feedback system, all of this, essentially, all three of these are feeding into your identity, right? And that is essentially who you are, the role that you're playing here on earth, right? In terms of the script that you currently have. And this is not static, right? In terms of your identity, it's constantly moving, shifting, adjusting, updating, and more often than not, it's all done unconsciously. But when you can become aware and consciously run this entire cycle here, right, this whole system, then you'll be able to consciously create the identity that best serves you, right? So that you can accomplish, manifest, create whatever it is that you want in terms of your dream life. And then all of this here in terms of your internal, external feedback, identity, all of this creates a message that essentially goes out and sends out to the universe, which then is reflected back, right, into the mirror here. And so all of this is essentially one big reflection system that is creating your reality. And that's really what the mirror principle is ultimately about, right? It's that everything that we're doing in terms of our identity, our internal operating system, is reflecting back out into the external. And then that's manifesting itself in terms of everything that we have in the external, with situations, with opportunities, with people, right? With different opportunities that come our way where we are taking those on, or are we walking away from those, right? All of this here is the entire cycle of how reality works in terms of it being just one big, huge mirror, okay? And so if you want to change your life, if you want to break free from the same old patterns, the first and foremost place that you need to start is inside, or internal. You need to understand how your internal operating system works in terms of your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your interpretations, right? All of that is first started internally, and then that is all reflected out to get you your desired reality, or whatever reality that you're currently experiencing. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go deeper into what exactly is the mirror principle. I want to break this down in depth. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. And let's break down what exactly is the mirror principle. Okay, so what is the mirror principle? And the big picture idea here, the overarching concept for what the mirror principle truly is, your internal patterns create a projection. Okay, think about a projector screen. Okay, in terms of you seeing something on the big screen, right? You're sitting at home and you have a projector and you have the screen, right? The projector's on the back and it's actually projecting the content, the video onto the screen, and you're sitting down and that is what is getting projected, okay? In terms of the story, the experience, the reality. And once you see that, right, once you see that video, you see that story playing out, this creates your perception. So your projection creates your perception. So this is essentially how you are seeing everything, right? In terms of, do you see something as positive? Do you see something as negative? Is it good or bad? Is it a big problem? Is it a small problem? This is ultimately how you perceive the world, right? In terms of the story that's happening on the screen through the projector. And then your perception shapes your actions. So this is what allows you to take action on certain things or not, and to have the wisdom and the understanding and the awareness which actions to take, you know, whether you should take an action at all, because oftentimes it's actually best to not do something, right? Instead of saying yes to everything, this is our ability to perceive correctly in terms of what's important to us, and then that drives the actions, whether or not we're taking a specific action or not, which then ultimately all of this reinforce your identity. So your actions ultimately are going to be reinforcing your identity. All of this here is really how you should look at your existence, your reality, right? Your internal patterns create a projection, right? Like a projector on the screen. Your projections create your perceptions, how you interpret certain events, experiences, that whole video that you're watching. And then your perception shapes your actions, whether or not you take specific actions or not, which then comes into reinforcing your identity, right? So this is essentially big picture what the mirror principle ultimately is here. It's a big, huge reflection system that is processed and ran through all of these different components here. Think about like the top 1%, or we can even say the top 10%, you know, that understand themselves, have awareness, have self-awareness, that can think for themselves. These individuals, they're not reacting to the events that are happening in life because they understand that they have full control over what reflection that they're giving out into the universe, right? What their frequency is that they're giving out to the universe to give them back what they want, because they know that if they have a certain event, a certain experience that is unfortunate, they're not going to sit there and dwell on it and step into the emotion of like shame, guilt, or like be stressed out all the time, because that's getting sent out and it's reflected back, right? When you're in that state and with those emotions, with those feelings, those are very, very powerful, that are then sent out and reflected back to you. So you get more of that. It's this constant loop. And so these folks understand that it's important to feel those emotions, but there's no dwelling there. For them, instead of being passive responders to situations and circumstances, they're constantly embodying the identity that they want to project into the world, because they have the awareness, the conscious creation of the reality, and they truly understand that their internal is a reflection of the external. So they really use that to their advantage and to their benefit. They know that if I feel good, if I'm in a good positive mental state, regardless of what happens, right? Like in terms of you ebbing, flowing, because you're not always going to feel good, right? You're going to feel up a little bit sometimes in terms of maybe you get a W, you get a win, but maybe you feel down every once in a while. You're supposed to feel like that, right? However, what is your baseline? That's the question that you need to be asking. You really want to be really level-headed in terms of situations, because then that's going to reflect back to you. Anytime that something happens that maybe, let's say previously, you would make a big, huge deal, now you look at it in the sense of like it being a small little minor inconvenience, because then it becomes a small little minor inconvenience versus being a huge problem that you interpreted, right, and that you perceived to be, which really it wasn't. And the mirror ultimately is reflecting back your identity. Maybe you've seen some of those different pictures or images where you have like a small little cat or a kitten, and then it's looking itself in the mirror and it's like this huge lion or like this huge tiger, right, in terms of the reflection. That is essentially a metaphor and really just an understanding of how this mirror principle truly works, right? Think about it. How somebody is actually looking at themselves regardless of their physical attributes, right? Maybe they're not as huge or big or massive as another person, but they see themselves in the mirror as someone who is strong, who is confident, who's bold, who's courageous. And then that gets reflected back to themselves and then reflected back into the external. Then people, experiences, circumstances, opportunities are all going to reflect that and come back to you and be attracted to you because you're emanating that, right? That frequency is being sent out and reflected back. So understand that the mirror isn't showing you what you want to see. It shows you the internal operating system of what you're running internally. Now, keep in mind, the reflection system in the mirror is going to show you your current identity. It's not going to show you something that you want to see or that you hope and wish and pray to see, right? It's just like, hey, this is who you are. And the power in that is that then you can analyze and become aware of what that picture looks like, and if it's something that you like or if it's something that you don't like and you want to change, right? But this is ultimately always going to give you an expression of what you're internally operating and running at any given moment. Okay, so now let's go over the 3 hidden layers that the elites master. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. Okay, so the 3 hidden layers that the elites master. These are the invisible internal systems that make the mirror principle work. And this is what ultimately separates like the elites, like the top 10% from everybody else. They understand these 3 layers and they have conscious control over them. Layer number 1, the identity signal. Identity signal. This is the signal that is the most powerful and that is sent out and reflected back. The top 10% or the elites are focusing on who they're becoming, right? Or even who they are, because they're constantly growing their identity and expanding with new opportunities, new challenges that are arising, right? Because if you're always just not really pushing yourself and you're staying in your comfort zone, there's no growth, right? There's no identity expansion. And so they're always focused on who they're becoming and then also who they currently are instead of what they're trying to get. Because reality responds to the identity signal. Because reality responds to the signal of the identity, not to efforts, not to wishful thinking or wants alone. It's all through the signal that the identity is sending out. Think about it this way. Think about your identity being like a Wi-Fi network, and you have your cell phone, and your cell phone isn't going to connect to that Wi-Fi network by just hoping and wishing and praying, right? They're going to need to match that frequency to connect to that Wi-Fi network itself. And think about yourself. Maybe you are someone who wants success, wants to make more money, right? Wants to manifest a partner. And then look at your internal operating system, your identity. Are you perhaps broadcasting something different, which is then giving you a different result, right? You can look at your current life right now to see what type of frequency that you're broadcasting out into the universe, right? That is reflected back to you. Look at that currently. And if it's not something that you like, right, in terms of your current experience, then you're sending out the wrong signal. You're broadcasting the wrong frequency. But the first step in all of this is just really becoming aware, right? Going into that room and flipping on that light so that you can see what's going on here. And then layer number 2, this is the interpretation OS. Okay, this is how your internal operating system of interpretations is essentially seeing everything and perceiving it, right? What type of meanings are you attaching to your events, to your circumstances? And again, this is all an internal operating system. You can look at like your identity as like the Microsoft Windows, like Windows 10, Windows 11, okay? That's the main baseline software that you need to run the system. And then you have all your different other internal operating systems that are like applications, right? And so this is what the Perception OS is how you are seeing everything, the meaning that you're attaching, right? Whether something is good or bad or small or big or a small problem or a big problem, all of that. Because what the elites know, right, the top 10%, they're not just trying to change circumstances because they understand that they don't have any control of it, right? Whatever happened, happened. It is what it is. And the powerful thing here is that they understand that they can shape the meaning of those events, of those circumstances, which gives them the conscious control and power over those events. Your interpretations are shaping your reality, not the external event or the objective event itself. Just think about it. Two different people can experience the same exact event, and based on their level of identity, their interpretations, their whole entire internal operating system that they're running, they're going to interpret that event completely different based on all of that because they have different interpretations of what reality is to them. And the one who masters meaning controls the outcome. Once you truly learn and understand the power of shaping meaning, everything changes for you, because then you start to see your situations, your events, your circumstances as just little minor inconveniences, right? Just small little things that are happening, and always learning and taking an experience, a lesson from those, right? When you can shift from, hey, poor me, right? The victim mindset, having everything be other people's faults, or just thinking that things are happening to you all the time, you can never get a break. Once you are able to master the meanings that you're attaching to those and change those to more positive ones, that's when everything changes for you. And I want you to think about this like a thermostat, because a thermostat recalibrates the temperature inside regardless of what the temperature is outside. And it does this by maintaining its internal balance by adjusting perception. And then layer number 3, this is the action signature. So number 3, action signature. This is another signature that is being broadcasted in terms of the actions and the behaviors that you're taking. And it's not just about what action you're taking, it's the identity behind the actions that matter most. And something really important here that I want you to understand is the mirror is also reflecting back the quality, so the energy, the authenticity of your actions, not just the quantity, right? Because you can do a lot of action, you can take a lot of action in terms of, you know, making things happen, right? But if your energy is off while you're doing them, in terms of the quality of your efforts, then that's also going to play a factor in terms of not getting the results that you want. And when your behavior aligns with your identity, you become a powerful force that reshapes reality quickly. With this layer 3, with this action signature, think about it this way. Two people can plant the same exact seed. One waters it with fear and impatience because they want something to grow super fast, like tomorrow, right? Or even today. And the other understands that it takes time, effort, and patience, along with certainty and care. They both have the same seed, but they're going to get completely different outcomes based on how they are approaching it. Okay, so now I want to go over 3 reasons why most people stay stuck in a negative mirror loop. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. Three reasons people stay stuck in a negative mirror loop. Number 1, they tried to change the reflection and not the source. This is huge here, right? You can't try and hope and wish that the reflection is going to give you what you want. It's only ultimately going to give you what your internal operating system is currently operating at and producing, right? It's just that simple reflection. It's a simple mirror. It doesn't judge. It doesn't think for itself. It doesn't sit there and give you what you wish and what you want. It's just like, hey, this is what it is, like it or not. And a lot of people are spending their energy trying to fix external problems, circumstances, with personal relationships, their job, their career. They're trying to fix all of that without addressing the internal cause that is actually the source of it all, because it doesn't do anything to try to make the mirror pretty. Maybe you color it a different color, maybe you have a nice little design on it, right? All these different things to like make it look a certain way. But then ultimately, when you're always stepping in front of the mirror, it's never gonna lie. It's always going to tell you what exactly it is that you're currently running, right? And the only way that you can fix that is if you fix the internal identity and operating system first, right? Which is the source. Think about somebody who is currently working and in their job, they're constantly complaining to other people about their situation, like, man, I'm not making enough money, or my boss doesn't respect me. But then they don't work on their self-beliefs, their interpretations, their emotional patterns, right? That are all essentially attracting the same exact experiences over and over again, right? Because this information was never taught to us, right? We don't understand that our beliefs, our interpretations, all that's running internally in terms of our internal operating system is what's ultimately the root cause of everything in our experience. And once we can accept it and acknowledge it, we regain the power back from it. And then number two, they don't realize that the loop is self-generated. Okay? This is what I was mentioning in terms of like, once you acknowledge and accept that you are responsible and have full control over your internal operating system, which then is reflected back into the external, which then is your external reality. Once you can truly understand and accept that, everything changes for you. But you need to first become aware and understand that this is the root cause and where it all starts. Because most people believe that life just happens to them. Like, things are just happening in the world and circumstances and events, and you know, I'm lucky or I'm not lucky. But most people tend to be and feel like they are unlucky and just things are just happening to them. And they ultimately see themselves as victims of circumstance. Think about somebody who keeps on attracting the same toxic or the same type of partners over and over again. Maybe yourself, maybe if you're attracting the same type of individuals that are not good to you or are demeaning to you and not respectful, right? And maybe they cheat on you, whatever that may be. All of that is ultimately all starting internally, right? Because you're accepting that and you're letting it happen. You're not confronting it, and you're not realizing that your internal operating system is the reason for all of this. This is all self-inflicted, right? Because once you become aware of that, then you can actually consciously change that and then have control of, like, you know what, maybe it is me. Maybe I have some beliefs or some views or perspectives that I have adopted, taken on, absorbed from others. And this is leading to my experience being a certain way it is, right? Because you think about it, after so many relationships, failed relationships, and you going through the same cycle over and over again, and looking at others in terms of like, man, he did this, or he was like that, or she was like this. Like, ultimately, there needs to come a time where you sit there and reflect upon, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. And it's difficult. It's challenging. I get it. Because nobody wants to spend time self-reflecting and acknowledge that, yes, it's all been my fault, because then that carries a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility. However, once you're able to take that on and acknowledge it, then you regain your control and your power over it. And then number three, the identity hasn't upgraded, so the reality cannot. Because the identity doesn't upgrade, the reality isn't going to upgrade, right? That's the most important source here, right? This is the Windows operating system for the whole entire, device. Think of your laptop, right? You have your operating system to power the actual computer itself, right? The Microsoft Windows 10 or 11. And if you want the projection, right, in terms of what you're seeing on the screen for your laptop to change, you need to change the operating system. You need to change the identity, because it's not just going to magically change the picture without changing the internal root cause, root source of it all. And keep in mind, there's a natural lag between internal growth and external change. If your identity remains the same or tied to like old stories, disempowering perspectives, your reality will reflect that, even if you want to see something different. And a good metaphor for this is you keep trying to fix the shadow instead of the object that's casting that shadow. Okay, so now let's go over how to use the mirror principle to become unrecognizable. Okay, so let's go ahead and erase the board here. How to use the mirror principle to become unrecognizable. We understand now that the mirror principle shows us how our internal operating systems are creating our reality in terms of the identity, beliefs, interpretations, right? So we know that this is all a reflection system, and it shows us what's currently running. And so the top 10% or the elites, they're actually using this information to their advantage, right? They're leveraging it. They're able to actually understand how this whole thing works to evolve themselves exponentially, where they become unrecognizable from their past because they know that they need to change their identity so that they can change the actual projection of the entire screen, right? Of the entire computer device that is the reality that they're experiencing. And there's a 4-step process that the top elite go through to master this. So step number 1, this is where we want to audit the reflection, okay? We're looking ourselves in the mirror, and do we like what we see? Or is it something that is not of our liking? What are the patterns? What are the loops that keep running? And this is where you need to be truly honest with yourself. Like, don't sugarcoat it. Don't try to make yourself feel good. Like, just be true and honest, because the more honest that you can be, the better quality data and the feedback that you're going to get so that you can fix those problems. And all these different persistent loops that are happening, they reveal kind of the baseline of your internal OS. Essentially, the unconscious programming that's running behind the scenes. Ask yourself these questions. What emotions, situations, or behaviors keep showing up no matter what I'm doing or what I try? Why do I feel this emotion when I see this person? Why do I keep going through the same problems, right? All those different questions that you need to be asking yourself in terms of all that's happening in your life, on your personal relationships, on the business side, personal growth, right? All of those different categories. Ask yourself the questions of, why do I keep experiencing this? Why do I keep having the same people in my life, right? All of that is going to help you audit your current system so you know what is currently running right now, what's happening. And then step number 2, this is where you want to change the identity signal, okay? Because this is the core signal that is being sent out there to the universe and then reflected back to you in the mirror, right? And to transform your reality, right, to upgrade it, you must upgrade this definition that you have of yourself by consciously choosing a new operating system. And the way that you can do this is by writing I am statements. So let's go over here. I am. This is how you're going to be able to change your identity OS, okay? Identity OS. This is your identity internal operating system. This is how you rewrite the script of who you are, the player in the game that you are actually playing in reality. This is how you change it. It's through I am statements. And so use these to your advantage, because they're going to help you tremendously in changing that identity signal. And then step number 3, this is where you want to repattern, okay, your interpretation. Because you have the power to design and attach the meanings that you want to any particular event or circumstance. And with this type of awareness and knowledge, this allows you to have situations and events happen in your life and allows you to consciously attach positive meanings to them, no matter what they are, regardless of what they may be. You can have unfortunate circumstances, events happening to you, but again, it's just like accepting what it is, like it is what it is, and then knowing that, you know what, this is a learning experience. And listen, I know it's a challenge. It is hard. It is really tough to have something bad happen to you and to be like positive about it and to be uplifting. Like, I think the first part here is just acknowledging it for what it is. Like, it is what it is. It happened, right? Maybe you got into a small little fender bender. It happened, okay? I can't go back into, the past and change it, but I can accept it for what it is and take away a lesson and learn. Maybe you were driving a certain way and you didn't fully stop at a stoplight or at a stop sign. Whatever that may be, you have to just learn to accept it for what it is, the event, and take something in terms of positive away from it. Like, a simple thing can be, hey, I'm alive, right? I actually got away from this little fender bender here and I'm alive and I'm still breathing. So there's always something positive to take and to attach to any particular event or circumstance. And so think about that. The more that you're able to attach positive meanings to all of those, the more that you're going to have a very nice and solid baseline so that you're not getting too high and you're not getting too low. And ultimately, what this all comes down to is reframing everything, okay? So you think about a situation or a circumstance, an event, right? You put a frame around it. Think of it like an actual frame rectangle, okay? You've put a frame around it and you got into a car accident or you got into a fender bender, and the frame that most people are going to attach to it is, OMG, my car is going to cost me a lot of money. Why did this person cut me off? I can't believe this person hit my car. All of these different things, right? But when you can reframe it and expand the size of that frame itself, there's more possibilities, there's more outcomes, there's more interpretations, right? You expand it to infinite, where there's no box around it. So then in there, in the ether, so to speak, you can now find positive meanings that you can attach to it. I'm glad that I'm alive. I was able to walk away with all my limbs. Like, it is what it is. I can't change the past. Like, I'm grateful that this person didn't get harmed as well, right? Like, the car can get fixed, the car can get updated. Yes, it's gonna cost me some money, but it is what it is. I can't change the past. That right there is so powerful, you have no idea. And it takes time, but the first thing is just becoming aware and reframing everything, right? Making that frame bigger so that you have more possibilities for positive meaning attachment. And then step number 4, this is where you want to act from future you, okay? And not current you. So you want to ask yourself, what would the future version of me do in the situation? How would they think about it, right? When we talked about the previous step in terms of expanding the frame, right, and reframing that, think about it from the lens of, what would my future version of me do in this situation? How would they think about it, right? In terms of the future version of you who is exactly how you want to be, in terms of the very level-headed, they reframe everything to a positive aspect. They understand that they have full control over the meanings that they're attaching to everything. So think about it from their lens, right? The future version of you who already has it all figured out. Because when you're thinking and acting from the future version of you, you're sending a powerful signal frequency out to the universe that's telling it to reflect back to you this new identity of you, right? This new version of you in the actual real world. Always constantly thinking about, what is my future self doing in this situation? How are they thinking about it? If my future self was here, what action would they take? Or would they not take any action? And start to embody that, right? And even think about it whenever you're doing something and something happens, like just stop and objectively think about it and look at it and be like, the future version of me, that guy, that gal who's, exactly where I want to be. They're making things happen. They've already gone through this. Like for them, this is like just a small little minor inconvenience, right? How are they thinking about it? And once you can get into the mind of your future version of yourself, then you can start to understand how they're moving, how they're talking, how they're acting, right? All of that, which then you can start to embody, which then gets you a new frequency sent out to the universe, which then reflects back to you in the external reality. And once you understand that life is a mirror, you stop fighting reality and you start designing the reflection. Change the source, and the mirror has no option but to respond.